quite a lot's happened politically and I suppose economically over the last 24 hours, so I want to catch up on all of that. And I want your input and your views, your texts, your calls. Our next interview is after 8 o'clock, so we've got a bit of time. And I think quite interesting, that interview. Despite the narrative that is now clearly being constructed by the legacy media, and here's the story they're going to keep telling you now. Nicola Willis is incompetent and should resign, and Chris Luxon's days as the National Party leader are numbered. That is what the hostile legacy news media are going to construct right up to the election. Because, of course, they're on Labor, Greens, the Māori Party side. So that is the drum that is clearly now going to be beaten. And I'm sure this wasn't the intention of the Herald when it published its mood of the boardroom. And Fran O'Sullivan did the commentary on that. She was the journalist. And she's tried to temper the results. But boy, for those who want to get rid of the coalition, it is an absolute boon, isn't it? Because you've got Chris Luxon ranked by, and it's only 150 business leaders. So this isn't a reality, it's a survey. It's a snapshot of a certain group of people. It says that Luxon rates 15th out of the cabinet. 15th. And his approval rating, his job approval rating is 2.96 out of 5. I'd be laser focused if I was him on raising that rating. Laser focused. And it tells us that, and he actually rates quite well apparently, in terms of getting his ministers to perform well and keeping the coalition together. But he's a dweeb. Let's be honest, face on a thumb is a bit of a dweeb, and it's showing. Does this mean his leadership is terminal? No. Actually, governments can work without really charismatic leaders, but you do need to have a leader. So I think what this mood of the boardroom shows, and Nicola Willis also didn't rate particularly well, and she's the Minister of Finance, what I think it reflects is a frustration amongst business leaders in New Zealand that we haven't recovered and come out of the slump of COVID and the recession more quickly. And we are impatient for better times. Unfortunately, a Treasury report out yesterday that we talked about with Rob McCulloch. How are you, Rob? You okay? You just have a cup of tea. Keep listening. Treasury figures out yesterday do make a very strong call for some major policy resets to avoid, and I think it was like 2090 or 2068, having national debt at 200% of our gross domestic product. Just unsustainable. And Treasury are saying yet again, we've got to deal with the cost of superannuation. But there's also some good news in that Treasury report. Old superannuitant dependents haven't grown as fast as a proportion of the population as we thought, because we've had a whole lot of younger immigrants coming in who keep paying tax and keep being productive. But Treasury says we need to overall raise our productivity. That is in the doldrums. And unless we deal with the issue of debt and the nation's indebtedness, the outlook is very, very gloomy. So I think we're reaching a time where we do have to make some very tough calls, and not necessarily the precise prescription that Mr. McCulloch, Professor McCulloch, in his rather grumpy way, laid out for us earlier this week, and Roger Douglas. But we're going to have to make some tough calls, particularly on superannuation and things like means testing, raising the age of eligibility, and reworking superannuation must be done. I don't think there's any doubt that we can kick this can down the road any further. And I think if it's going to be done, it needs to be done with a political consensus. It needs to be changed with the approval of all political parties or all major political parties. And then it needs to be bloody well left alone. Then it needs to be left alone. We do actually have to get beyond politics and forge a national consensus, a nationwide consensus on how to deal with super and how to deal with the issue of our debt. And if we don't, we are headed to Banana Republic. Not because, Rob, there's a massive conspiracy and the New Zealand Initiative have stolen Nicola Willis's brain. That is just your cooker stuff. But clearly this Treasury report tells us we've got some issues to deal with.